start off by announcing our captains that were chosen after spring ball. So after our winter workouts, which was great to have, our fourth quarters, which is great to have, our kids were isolated for a little bit. And then we were able to get in all of our 15 practices. And with all of that, our guys voted after, and it was a pretty unanimous. Starting off with Diego Fogo, will be almost a 4-year starter, all-conference player, one of the best defensive players we've ever had here at the Naval Academy. Also, Michael Cooper, come back for his senior year. We're expecting big things from Mike. Michael, we're expecting a great year from him. Also, Kevin Brennan, also another all-conference safety, was voted as the other captain, and our fourth captain was Chance Warren. And so, very excited about our captains. We've already started to meet. They've started to meet with Captain Blick to start to get, some of their training for this summer as they press forward with this football team. But those are our team captains. Really excited about them. Really excited about this team. It was awesome to have spring practice. I mean, it was just great to be out there. And after 15 practices, really like where this football team's at. Been doing this a long time, and I normally get feels for our team is after spring ball, unless you don't have a spring ball. It's hard to get a feel for your team. But last year this time I was in Hawaii talking to you guys, and all of us are still running the Sam's Club and stuff like that to get sanitizer and stuff. But it's, right now I just feel really good where our football team's at. Last year we had some young quarterbacks that had never played before and didn't have a chance. They didn't have a chance to be groomed by Coach Jasper. This group had 15 practices going against Coach Newberry's defense. I tell you what, for some young quarterbacks, going against Coach Newberry's defense is going straight to calculus. I mean, there's no pre-algebra or anything. You go straight to the top as far as learning curve. And so it was really competitive spring, a lot of good things. And that's where we're at right now. So I'm excited where we're at right now.
All right, we'll open up for questions. Mike James, you start us off.
So knowing that every team is different, Coach, how does this team compare to some other teams in terms of what you were able to get done in spring?
Yeah, great question, Mike. You don't like to compare teams. Randy knows this, playing at a high level, just even though we won a lot of championships, each year is still different. Each team is still different. There's still different chemistry. This team reminds me of the 19 team. Just not much talking. Coach Fitz got after them this past spring. Nobody liked what happened last year. Nobody's going to say anything. We're just pressing forward. Nobody, our players don't like the taste of what happened. And this is a proud program. We've done a lot of great things here. And this team, this senior class reminds me a lot of the 2019 team. They came, they got together, set goals that they wanted to do. But more than anything, it's just the way they've been working. Very similar to a lot of teams, but just their workman mentality. Nobody says anything. We get after these guys, and they just keep working. And so because of that, it reminds me a lot of the 2019 team, just humbled by the previous year, don't like what happened, and they just gone to work. And I really like where we're at as a football team, but similar to the 2019 team.
I'm a little curious about the fullback position and what it's like to have three seniors kind of battling it out. So, does that kind of up the intensity when you have three guys at the top of the depth chart kind of playing their last season? And B, does it make it a little more difficult for younger guys to get reps when you have that kind of a situation?
Yeah, our numbers weren't as big this year, Mike, at the fullback position. So normally it would make it difficult. But I think all three of those seniors are different. Obviously, Jamel Carruthers is the most dynamic fullback that we've probably ever had. He's along the lines of probably Alex Teach or Noah Copeland, more of a slasher, and obviously straight ahead speed to take the distance. I would say Isaac Ruas is similar to Vince Murray. Just a slasher, really good feel, bends things well. And then James Harris is probably not as big and as fast as Chris Swain, maybe similar to, I'm trying to think who he'd be like, but he's a physical runner, good blocker. So they're all different, and they all bring different things to the table.
Thanks, Coach.
Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach, what impressed you the most about the way this team, as you said, how they came together? What impressed you the most that you saw on the field with them?
There's a couple things, two things. Number one, it was unseasonably cold in January and February. I mean, running for our kids, running here at the academy with the wind coming off the river there. I mean, it was really cold, and these kids, they were out there running. And like I said, if their parents saw them, these guys not wearing jackets, and we got them out with t-shirts and shorts running, and these kids, it was almost like SEAL guys at Buds, just on the cold, and they didn't say anything. They just kept working. Coach Fitz was looking for certain ways to run, and if it didn't suit the way he liked it, it didn't count. And if something didn't count, nobody complained, and they just kept pushing each other along. But then also, Scott had just met with every single one of our players. So after spring ball, every position coach meets with their position, and then I meet with every single one after spring ball to kind of assess where they're at. And I came away so impressed with where we're at, with our senior leadership, our young guys, their maturity, knowing what it takes. I just like our chemistry of this team, and just in doing this a long time, that's what it's really all about, just barely bringing your team together. And those are probably things that I've liked about this team. We've gone after them, 15 practices that, we got after each other, and, guys came banged up, bruised up, and a lot of them said this was the most fun that they've had at spring ball. Most guys don't like spring ball. I think they were just so happy to practice. Normally they're like, oh, great, another practice. Practice 8, crap, practice 9, and you're just dreading each practice. But these guys were really excited about practice this year, because I just think just being able to get out was awesome for them.
It sounds like they're in a good place mentally after having to go through so many things with the pandemic over the last year, that those 15 practices really did them well. Yeah,
and all of our pretty much a high number I don't know what the exact number is, but I think almost all our players are vaccinated, or most of the kids at the academy, most of the faculty and staff. And so I think it's alleviated a lot of concerns, and just, I do not feel the same way that I did last year. Last year, my number one concern was to protect our players. And I wasn't going to do anything to jeopardize anybody. I wasn't going to do anything. And last year at this time, none of us knew anything. The smartest people in the world didn't know anything. But things are different now. All of our team's been vaccinated. And so I just feel we're at a different place with our football team. So I think they're more at ease that way. They lighten up the restrictions so they can come out and go outside and take leave. And I think that's just been great for their mental psyche also.
Thanks, Coach. Have a great summer.
Thank you, Scott. You too.
Let's go to Bill Wagner.
Hey, Coach. So obviously, I think a big emphasis was on physicality and you know, like Randy Cross always likes to say, you're kind of building that shell, the callus. How did you feel that piece worked out? I think you did a lot of hitting, maybe more hitting than you probably done in a spring camp in a while, huh?
I don't know that. I just think we do was the normal spring practice. You know what I mean? Wags, which we didn't have last year. And like I said, not only did we didn't have spring practice, but in essence, we didn't have a fall camp. I didn't hit all fall camp. So it's like we didn't do anything last year. Then we rolled up against BYU and got, but it was a normal, but all of our spring practices are pretty physical. You know what I mean? And so the nature of our offense, we're coming off the ball. You know, we're not setting back on pass sets. I mean, we're going north and south. The other side is coming forward. And so there's a lot of collisions. But it was a good physical spring ball practice wise.
I had heard from my sources that Ty Lavatai had a good camp and looked good out there. Obviously, he tightened the competition up with Xavier. They're now equal atop the depth chart. Did Ty show you something?
I thought Ty had a great spring. You know, I just, you know, came into it with Xavier being the starter. He was number one, followed by, we didn't know those other guys. You know, like I said, Ty was on the scout team last year. We didn't have JV game last year, so where you can kind of see kids. So we didn't have any of that evaluation. Ty wasn't here for a fall camp. You at least see your freshman in fall camp. We didn't see any of that, and so we didn't know. And so, you know, him coming in, we knew that at Naps he played well because he was the quarterback that led, you know, our prep school with the win over Maps. So that's always a big game. So if you do that, there's something about you. You know what I mean? If you're a guy that can have the wherewithal in the rivalry game to win that game. So that was our only assessment of him, besides what we saw in as a high school player. But very impressed with him. Very similar, if you know, as I try to equate guys, very similar to Will Worth. You know, physical runner, about 215, can throw the ball, got great touch. You know, his runs don't look spectacular. Then he gets up and, oh, wow, he gained 6 yards. It's 2nd and 4. You know, he'll run an option and he'll get tackled and you get up and you're like, whoa, you know, he gained 5. You know, he gains a minimum of 5 yards. And similar to Will wasn't the flashiest runner. But if Will doesn't get hurt his senior year, he's probably going to break all of Keenan's single season rushing records and all. I mean, he was on track to do all of that before he got injured. But Ty has some of that about him. Xavier, I kind of feels like a combination of Malcolm and Keenan. He's a runner, but he's got this leadership quality about him. And so Xavier had a good spring too. And Masai, you know, also had a great spring. And I would say Masai Minor is kind of like, I would equate him to Ricky. About the same size-wise, the way he runs, kind of, you know, he's a strong guy, hard to bring down, but he's got a quick release, just like Ricky. I mean, kid can spin it. And so we came into the spring with the, you know, our number one concern is, like you said, physicality for our team. Second of all, find a quarterback. And, you know, by now it's Ty and Xavier that are tied at the top with Masai closely behind him. So we feel much, much better. Coach Jasper and I feel much better at this point, whatever today's date is, May, you know, going into the season with our quarterback situation.
Can you talk a little bit about the offensive line? Because you're going to have some new starters no matter what. And then some guys who were listed atop the depth chart going into spring did not come out of spring atop the depth chart. Some other guys stepped to the fore. What's your take on the offensive line? I know when we spoke a few weeks ago, you're, you know, high on them, but did you feel they as a unit perform well and opened holes and, you know, pushed the defense back?
Well, there's give and take when you go against when you go against each other. Some days the offense will do better. Some days the defense will do better. Some days there's a stalemate. But there are definitely a lot of spots that I felt, bright spots that I felt good about. It's not that we've arrived, but I felt going into fall, spring ball, because watching them run, the size of our guys, in the depth. But I want to see how they practice. I want to see how they could function with the stress of Coach Newberry's, high pressure defense and movement and disguising. And really, really excited Wags coming out of spring ball. I feel like, right now, Jake Casavella is our starting left tackle. I thought he had a really good spring. Josh Pena came out of nowhere. He was a kid that was over 300 and lost some weight, probably in the 280 range, kind of that range, but he moves much better now, and he's a physical kid. Pierce Banbury, I thought had a really good spring. Pierce is about 290, 295. Lost some weight from last year, but I think the experience of last year has helped him. Had a much better spring. Nick Bernacchi at our right guard. It's a guy that's kind of waited his turn, like a lot of our seniors do. They play O-line. Again, he had a good spring. Goes about 285, 290. And I thought he did a good job. And, Kip Franklin is our projected starter, but didn't participate. He was injured, but he'll be back. But Sam Glover and Bryce Teixeira are the two guys that did some good things there. But we got some backup guards. Darrison Masaniai has a chance. Now, he's still got to work through a lot of things, but he's got the potential to be the best offensive lineman in all my years of being here. I mean, he's lost some weight. He's down to about 310, 315. He's explosive. He can move. He's nasty. Football comes easy to him. Got loose hips. I mean, there's just a couple reps early on. I still remember Coach Ingram and I looked at each other when we saw him do something like, did we just see what we just saw? So we're really high on him. Luke Coleman is another young man that thought had a really good spring. 6'3", 6'4", about 290, 295. Really excited about some of the things that he did. So there's Ahmad Bradley. I mean, I could go up, but I think there's about maybe 10, 12 guys that we feel like can help us down the road, but for sure, at least 2 deep, we like what we have. And so again, we've met as a staff about all of our personnel, and going into the summer, Coach Ingram, who's been doing this all my 14 years being a head coach, we feel like, and Coach Work, who's over there doing a great job with them, we feel like we have a chance this year. Really like our pieces. Now, it's the summertime. We hope they continue to come like this. Because again, as you said, Randy knows playing position. O-line is all about chemistry. And so hopefully there are some guys that came together this spring in 15 practices, and hopefully they just keep coming closer together. So really excited about the group.
All right, I'll give someone else a chance.
Randy Cross.
Yeah, Coach. Again, congratulations on a fun spring. It seemed like for you guys, just to kind of get back to normal. It's the way you guys actually function. We get the way this season starts for you guys. How much of an advantage is it for your quarterbacks from a processing standpoint to be able to go against Coach Newberry's D? And that some of those one-on-one situations you do give them. As far as being able to be ready for the Marshalls and the Air Forces and the Houstons and those kind of teams early on?
It's a great point, Randy. It's vital for us. There's so many things that, you're doing now, like, man, I forgot we missed this. Even just O-line versus D-line on run drills, just going through, they'll run their front, we'll run our blocks, and being able to do that in individual work is huge. I think, how do I put this? I said it 2 years ago, or last year. Obviously, Malcolm was phenomenal. But Malcolm going against our Newberry that spring, he needed that. He needed to see all these different looks and moving around and stemming, going from a 50 to an even front, going from a bear to a 4-3. Coach Newberry does things in one practice more than we'll see in the whole, what we'll see in the whole season. You know what I mean? You know, popping B gaps, popping A gaps, bringing the corner, bringing the strong safety. You know, so the course of stunts that you'll see in accumulation of 12 games and 12, 15 practices, you'll see it all. And so, you know, Malcolm was able to see all of that. And I really believe that obviously with Coach Jasper coaching him, allowed Malcolm to be ready. And it's allowed not only our quarterbacks, but our O-line, you know, Randy, to see all those fronts. It's like we tell guys, the guys, okay, in that one period when Coach Newberry did this, that's how so-and-so plays. That's how so-and-so plays. Now, what you saw this period, that's what so-and-so does against us. And, you know, we go every day, and Coach Newberry would come to, you know, Coach Jasper and offense and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is this okay? He goes like, heck yeah, bring it on, man. We need it. We need it. We'd rather see it now. And that was our thing that you couldn't do last year, which was hard to explain to people. Like, how come you can't get an option quarterback ready to run? Because those hard stunts that you see coming at somebody, you need it full speed. It can't be, you know, Coach Jasper is in pretty good shape, but Coach Jasper coming off the edge, you know, trying to do a stunt. I mean, it's not the same as that dude that got drafted from Houston, you know what I mean, coming off the edge and hitting you in the mouth. The only way you can see that stuff, it has to happen live. And we couldn't do that, and we couldn't do it in camp. But going against Newberry stuff, Randy, I don't know how to put it, it's twofold, because I'm the head coach, but I'm on the offensive side of the ball. And you get mad because he brings all these things and, you know, and you know, you can't get back to the line of scrimmage, and you want to say, you know, because you're competitive, you're competing against that side, but, you know, you're grateful he's a defensive coordinator, but you also recognize it's helping your O-line and your quarterback a ton.
Mm-hmm. So the O-line specifically, and to a degree, you know, I think Scott asked a little bit about it, as did Wags, that recognition for them. You know, we can talk about the fullbacks, we can talk about the quarterbacks, we can talk about all that, but if there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to go if things aren't done up front. Or is there that much optimism from what you've seen this spring that there could be significantly something different this fall?
Let me just, yeah, and you guys know, you guys have covered us for a long time. All of us on this call, I just equate it to this. All of us on this call, the first snap against BYU, I think all of us said, oh crap. I think it's like, oh. I mean, we've been covering it for like, what is that? That doesn't look like Navy football. You know what I'm saying, man? It didn't take a rocket science. Even my wife, like, hey, we didn't look the same, because no, we didn't. You know, but watching us now and being at practice, Randy, it's us. That's, I guess, I don't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. I just see like, okay, I recognize that I recognize. So that's why there's great optimism, you know, so I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
And on the defensive side, can you talk a little bit about the positives of having some pretty dynamic, pretty assertive personalities that you have in your senior leadership on the defensive sides, you know, specifically guys like Brennan and Fago?
Well, and the thing that was even, I thought, better for us too, Ryan, is we know Diego. He's going to be one of the best linebackers in the league. Kevin Brennan is going to be one of the best safeties. They're a little banged up this spring, so they practice, not every practice, but they practice and allow the younger guys to get in there. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we built some depth at the safety position, at the linebacker position. Right now at the linebacker position with Diego leading us, Tama Tuitele, Johnny Hodges that, you know, played an Army game and played well, and Will Harbor emerged as the Admiral Mack winner. We feel like we're, in all my times of being there, I feel like we have 4 linebackers that we feel really good about. And like you talked about Kevin Brennan, Coach Newberry always talks about Mitch West, who kind of came on after Evan Faulkman got hurt. But he said Mitch played as good as any safety that we've had in the Army game. And he's come back, he had a really good spring. Mikey McMorris had a phenomenal spring. We're starting to realize how talented Mikey is. You know what I mean? He's had a great spring, but, you know, we did our verticals recently, and Mikey's a 40-inch vertical guy. I knew the kid was explosive. I didn't know he's that explosive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I think they measured his length. I mean, he's got some long arms. The kid, he measures, a lot taller than he is, but just his explosiveness, and he had a really good spring. So just really excited. Jerry Warren, also had a good spring. Nick Straw at Raider came on late, played well in the Army game also, but these 15 practices just taking him to the level, because he started off at linebacker. So Coach Newberry then moved him, and he played, well at the end of the season. So those are the, with Diego, with some of the guys we have, it was hard to move the ball against our defense this spring. You know what I mean? And so I loved what I saw on defense.
That's great. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Randy.
Bill Bergman.
Coach, as a whole, this group of captains, what impresses you most about them?
Well, I already had a meeting with them, just talking about some of their thoughts for this team. And they just said that, and, even though if I met with some of the young guys, they said, Coach, I just feel closer as a team. Obviously, because we're not having virtual meetings, we can get together. But the captains talked about our team coming like this, and that they made it an effort to reach out to the freshmen and talk more to them and find out who they are. Last year it was bizarre. I mean, guys couldn't be in the locker room, couldn't be in the training room together. As soon as practice was over, we had to disperse. We met virtually. I mean, pretty much everything was virtual. So, we weren't really a team, like many teams. So we weren't the only guys going through that. But these captains have talked about, bringing our team together. That's their number one priority, having some team activities, including the freshmen. And it's probably one of the hardest things that we have to, I'm going to say break, but yeah, break is the right word. That on our football team, there's no hierarchy of seniors, firsties, plebes. We're all players. And everything is based on your merit of your performance and how hard you work. It's not based on, seniors get preferential treatment. There's a respect factor for the seniors, but it's all based on work. And so the captains have done a really good job of talking about Phil bringing our team together. I've been excited about all of them. We have the catapult system. It's the GPS that kind of monitors how much you run and the volume of what you do at practice. Michael Cooper is consistently runs farther than anybody on our team. And we always have to try to slow him down. Hey, your mileage is pretty, your yardage is pretty high yesterday. Can you bring it down? We have your legs right. Okay, I got you. And then he runs more. And you're like, Coop, slow down. He goes, and he got a coach, and he just, it's just, but that's all of those guys. Kevin Brennan, those runs that I was talking about when we were running on the grass field, the coaches will be waiting for the guys while they're in the weight room, and they run out to the grass field to work out. The first guys to get to the field, Kevin Brennan and Mitch West. Those are the signs of like, we got a chance. When your best players are the hardest working guys coming out, Chance Warren, just when they work harder than anybody else, it's hard to do anything else. An example I was using in 2015, my son worked out with our team. And I say, hey, you want to work out? I say, yeah, you can come out. He's a senior. He was a 15, yeah. But it was Bernie, Sarah, and Keenan Reynolds were the quarterbacks. The captains. And he told me after the workout, he goes, Dad, there are a lot of times I wanted to quit because the workout was so hard, but I couldn't because I was watching Bernie Sarah, who's a team captain, and he's 300 pounds making all these runs that I had to do it too, and I didn't want to quit. So he saw from a high school playing standpoint, it's like, so it's the same standard that these seniors are setting for our freshmen and everybody else, that this is the standard. This is how we work at Navy, and there's no other option.
The senior and captain of last year's team, Cam Kinley, now potentially having the opportunity to make a roster with Tampa Bay. Just how proud are you of him for getting the shot?
Unbelievably proud of him. Just the things he did in the offseason, that was all Cam. It's not like like some of these guys, they leave school early. They don't come the second semester. They leave in January and, go train in Florida or California or wherever these places are that they trained for the combine and all these things. Cam was doing it on his own. You know what I mean? He'd work out with some of our strength coaches and some of the former players. And so what he did was remarkable. And we're all very, very proud of Cam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Kareem Copeland.
Hey, Ken.
Hi, Kareem.
Apologies if I came in the middle of Scott's question, so I apologize if he was asking before. But I was curious, just from this session, anything surprised you, or what was your biggest surprise, something that you were most pleased with that maybe you weren't expecting to see going into the session?
Well, just being at the depth at certain spots. When some guys got banged up, a little bit tweaked, like I said, some guys got tweaked at certain positions, like, oh, he's not going to be able to practice. But then you see some young guys, Will Harbor, it just kind of came out, Josh Pena, these guys that we thought that Jake Casavella was kind of funny because, I was talking to Jake Casavella and he's going to be a junior. But, we're just talking and he's like, okay, coach, what are we doing this summer? Now, how does this work? I mean, he'd never been here during the summer. Just some of these things are like, what are you talking about? This is what you always done. Like, I've never been here in the summer, so guys like that, I'm just trying to think of guys that, came along that we were really, really excited about. Like I said, the biggest one I think was Will Harbor, as a guy that just had a really, really good spring. So just really excited to see him.
And just one follow-up on you were talking a lot about the quarterbacks and Ty and Xavier. Is it a good thing that after this session that you're happy with both, but is it a good thing that competition is there and they're that close, or would you have rathered somebody kind of pulled ahead of the group and you'd have been able to kind of point to that guy and say, yeah, this is, he's clearly ahead of everybody else?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, Kareem, because, obviously you would like to have your quarterback. This is the guy, and you go into the summer, everybody knows. But I think everybody saw them both do great things. So the players know. They're all out of practice. They see both of these guys do great things. And I think both of the guys could rally around, okay, yeah, they both have their qualities and they both have their strengths. And so I think our team would be able to rally around either one of them who wins it. And I think it's definitely going to raise the level of competition for everybody in off season. You know what I mean? As they do their own player run workouts and as they do certain things on their own 7-on-7s, their own, routes on air, I think the competition will be good. And also from the standpoint, Kareem, they're both great young men. You know what I mean? And so obviously they're both competitors and they both want to be the quarterback. But they're great people that come from great families. And so, they're not deviant kids. They're going to do all they can to win, and compete. But I think they also recognize, if one guy beats out the other, they'll be disappointed, but I don't think they'll tear down the team. You know what I mean? That's what I feel good about. They're both young men of high character.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Kareem.
Pete Medhurst.
Coach, for the better part of last year, it was just about survival, week by week to have people that could play and obviously play a representative game. But so far through these 15 practices, do you know a lot more about a lot of guys that you really didn't have any idea about even by the end of last football season?
That's a great question, Pete. And yes, like Pierce Banbury, he played all last year. You have a better feel for him. Nick Straw, who kind of came on in the later parts. Biscuit, our nose guard, you have a much better feel for him and who he is. And so I think a lot of the guys you got to see and you feel better about. But it's like you said, Pete, and last year was about survival in a lot of ways. We were Jimmy rigging the offense. I think nobody recognized what we were doing against SMU. Neither did we. But we couldn't run an option. So we're an option team, and so everything starts with the option. And so I guess another point that I'm so grateful for, that's been a bit of emphasis. So we've been able to run an option, and they, from Masai to Xavier to Ty, all of them have had a ton of reps this spring going against our defense running options. So we know that we won't have to jimmy rig the offense. Things will branch out, but it will branch out from the option. Where last year we're like, okay, let's try this. Let's try the counter zone. Let's try this. And because we couldn't run the option. And so, you know, the survival mode, I feel much better about because I know the survival mode is going to start with our foundation of the triple. And so we know from that standpoint, we feel much better.
The fact that you have so many returning guys on the defensive side, as you still, even early in the season, you may even be sorting out the quarterback battle if it stays close. But the fact that you have so many guys coming back on defense, how good of a starting spot is that for you to have that kind of experience, in particular with the back seven guys, with the way they played with great effort at the end of the last season for you?
Oh, it's a great luxury, Pete. It's a great luxury for us. And I don't, you know, Coach Newberry's still got a ton of tricks up his sleeves. You know what I mean? The guy he's constantly evolving. I mean, he's the mad scientist. You know, we always chuckle on like I said, I've said this before, you know what I mean? On offense, we said, because, you know, like I said, we go against the defense. Coach Newberry's defensive coordinator. I'm the head coach, but I'm on the offensive side of the ball. And we always see him when he's starting to draw on the board. We're like, oh, the Wizards drawing some stuff up again. What's he drawing up now? Trying to sneak in there to get a peek at what he's, you know, what blitz he's coming with today. But yeah, it's definitely a positive and a plus for us to have so many returners. And these guys, they understand. Kevin Brennan understands his system. A big part of our system is disguise and moving and you know, giving people different looks and the illusions of doing different things. And when you know what you're doing, you can be really good at disguising. And our guys are getting much more comfortable, you know, with Coach Newberry's defense, that they know, hey, yeah, I know I'm really supposed to be over there, but I can kind of hide things and be over here. And so I think even that's going to even evolve even more.
You've talked an awful lot about a lot of names, which presents a lot of competition, which also means your coaches have gone out and found good football players. The league itself, Zaven Collins goes 16, Peyton Turner, they trade up to grab him in the bottom of the first round from Houston. Just after a few years now of being at this and trying to attack the American, thoughts on the way the league has helped you all get better and consistently attract an even higher level of players. You all have seen Malcolm now go in and have opportunity with the Dolphins, and Cam's going to get a shot here with the Buccaneers.
It just makes you realize, you know what I mean, we got great young men. Because there's some times we were talking about, it's just, I knew the kid from Houston was good. I didn't know he was that good. I mean, like, whoa, we went in the first round. I mean, the kid was hard to block, you know, and there's so many of those kids. The Collins kid, a couple years ago when we played him as a sophomore, I mean, like, we were asking our A-backs to go in and block him. You know, I remember at the side and at the half, you know, we're on the sidelines, we were like, hey, get in there, come on, stick your face in, you got to block them. And those guys are like, they give you the look like, Coach, did you see how big that guy is? And like, but they, you know, to the credit of our guys, they kept going in there. But the thing that I, you know, very powerful for our conference is all of the other group of five, whatever you want to call them, conferences together. I think you know, we have 4 more than all of them combined, you know, I mean, our conference. So it shows you the competition of our conference. You know, we're very close. I think it was to the, you know, the Big 12 amount of, you know, guys that are NFL caliber. You know, sometimes guys look at, and I think, you know, I was asking Scott, what are the number of regular season wins versus other group of 5 schools? And I don't know if Scott, you have that, but I know it's pretty high. Yeah. But sometimes people go over our bowl matchups, but unfortunately also for our league that we have a lot of our kids that opt out in some of those teams that don't play in those bowl games. You know what I mean? Like the team, and I saw Houston playing in the bowl game against Hawaii, like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like the same Houston team that we played right there. I didn't recognize, I guess a lot of kids didn't play, you know what I mean? They played in our game. So sometimes it hurts our league. A lot of our kids in our league don't end up playing in bowl games. But our conference is a really, really good conference, as we all know.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete.
Kendall Griggs, do you have anything?
I do like your shoes, Kareem. I was trying to think. My eyes are getting bad. Are those shoe boxes?
It's out of control over here.
I had to ask. We'll make one more pass through. Mike James.
So, Coach, you were just mentioned about having A's have to go in and block guys like Zaven Collins. You got Tiger Gosselin that's moving up the depth chart. How's he's adjusting to the physical side of playing A back?
Another great question. Thanks for reminding. Really excited about him because you know that he can catch. You know he can run. He's got good hands. He was a holder at one point, so was really excited from that standpoint. But he wasn't afraid. He went in a couple blocks. I was like, watching the film, is that Tiger sticking his face in there? All right, man. So I'm really, really excited about him. You know what I mean? He also gives you a lot of options because you got him and Chance at A-backs that are both former quarterbacks too. So it gives you a lot of, from the trick play standpoint, gives you a lot of different options. And so I thought Tiger did really, really well, Mike, and just really happy about his physicality. He's not afraid. Very similar to Jared Bryant a couple years ago. When we moved him a couple years ago. That was like a decade ago, I guess. been here too long, but very similar to Jared Bryant.
I also wanted to ask a little bit about the punting situation. Punting was a little inconsistent last year. Was the punting game affected by the same lack of practice, and how has that come along in the spring?
Yes, it was affected by last year, but that's also a big concern of ours. So that's something going into summer. It's, we're still got some guys competing for it. We got some kids that are coming in, this year in the freshman class that are going to compete for it. Punting is the one thing that you can do early. You know what I mean? It's not like you're learning a defense or an offense or anything. If you're the best punter and you're a freshman, you're going to play. And so, you're right, James. That's something we got to improve on. I think we saw a little bit in the Army game. It just, field position, defensive game, punting is a big part because it changes field position. And so that's a big, big part of it. So some of it was by circumstances last year of the whole pandemic. But it's a wide open competition right now with some guys still coming in the fall to help to compete for it.
Thanks, Coach.
Scott Wyckoff. You're good. Wags.
Well, yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about the skill positions? We haven't really talked too much about slots and the receivers, but I mean, obviously the fans all want to know, does Navy have guys that can make plays? And, what did you see? I know Chance is kind of the one proven entity. What did you think of a guy like Daniel Jones? Is Carlinos AC getting better? You think Michael Cooper and Mark Walker are somewhat proven entities, but you have more behind them at receiver. Maybe just talk about a little bit about the skill positions.
Yeah, just and you said it was between Michael Cooper and Mark Walker. I think two of the most dynamic guys that we've had. You know what I mean? Just both athletic. Obviously, Coop is a lot taller, but Mark is probably one of the fastest guys. Probably him and Mike are the two fastest guys on our team. We moved Jaden Umberger over there, and Jaden from quarterback, and we thought he had a really good spring at wide receiver. Zachary Coleman, who got injured, but we're expecting him back. That he had a good spring, had a good spring, so we expect him back to help us. So those are the guys on the perimeter. Marcel Gleaton, another big kid along the lines of the big kids, 6'3", 215, 220, big physical kid. So we feel good about we feel much better about that group coming out of spring ball. The A-backs you mentioned, the starters are Carlinos, AC, and Chance Warren. Carlinos, Tonio Gully, probably faster, Tonio Gully, but I say that Tonio always had these long runs. Poor Tonio, I was always trying to give the ball to Daishan and Romain, and Tonio was the guy with the long runs, but we're expecting big things from Carlinos. Had a really good spring. Daniel Jones, another guy, probably one of the fastest guys on our team, Florida kid. We're really, really excited about him. Mike mentioned Tiger Gosselin. Did some good things there. Devin High is also a guy that we're counting on there. And then there's a lot of young guys with Kai Rojas. Some guys that could help us at that position. Then, the B-backs we already mentioned, those guys, and then we have our quarterbacks. But I'm excited. I'm excited about our skill kids. We got some kids coming in from the prep school, and then some freshmen that we hope that can compete. But we got the pieces, man. That's why I'm encouraged. I was encouraged coming out of our running, watching us run, our winter conditioning, our fourth quarters. But then you want to see them play, which we didn't have last year. We got to see them play 15 practices, and I'm really, really encouraged by them, our offensive skill guys.
Right, 15 practices. I think earlier you said 17. It's 15, right?
It's 15, yes.
All right.
Sorry.
All good for
Did
me.
I say 17? Sorry, if I said 17, I was wrong. If it was 17, we would have a violation. We'd have two
I
more
know you
than
would
we're
never
allowed.
do that. All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Randy.
Yeah, Coach, and you may have touched a little bit on this earlier, but can you talk a little about your depth and where you're at out there on the outside corners wise? Because with your Scott style of defense, it can be fantasy island out there at times.
Yeah. So obviously, as I mentioned Mikey McMorris is one guy we're counting on. Jamel Glenda came in and played really well at the ending part of the season. We expect him to be back. Had some injuries, but he'll be back, ready to go. Caleb Clear got in there and played some reps last year. He's a kid that has got to work. Dre Grace is another long, athletic young man who we feel that has a chance to play out there. So that's probably our two deep. They all of those four kids. Obviously Mikey's the proven one. Jamel came in late in the part of last year, and probably a really pleasant surprise. Coach Newberry was really happy about Jamel when he came in and played, and felt like Dre Grace had a good spring, and Caleb is a guy that's coming along. We got some other young guys and some freshmen against some plebes. We're already working forward to make sure that what happened last year doesn't happen again. So we're really working on whatever these guys need to come in, make sure they have their vaccination or whatever, so that these kids can practice, and not miss fall camp like our freshman class did last year.